The European Union is heading into one of its most explosive internal confrontations since the Ukraine war began. At the center of the storm is a proposal to unlock more than 200 billion euros in frozen Russian assets to finance Ukraine. What was meant to be a show of European resolve is now triggering open rebellion inside the bloc. Germany's Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, is leading the charge, arguing that financial pressure is now essential to force Moscow toward negotiations. Speaking in the Bundestag, Merz framed asset seizure not as escalation, but as leverage to end the war faster.
It is about making clear to Russia that continuing this war of aggression is senseless. Making these assets usable would finance the Ukrainian army for at least 2 more years, according to our assessment. And let me say this very clearly. We don't want to take this step to prolong the war. We want to take it to end the war as quickly as possible.
But behind closed doors, resistance is growing. The European Central Bank and several member states fear the move could shatter trust in the euro, spook global investors, and expose the EU to endless legal retaliation. Belgium, where most of the assets are held, has warned of serious consequences. Merz insists those fears can be managed.
I am aware of the concerns of many governments in the European Union. I am aware of the concerns of the Belgian government in particular, where a large part of the frozen assets are located, and I take these concerns seriously. That is why we are consulting with each other. That is why I am consulting with our partners to dispel these concerns. I believe the proposal by the EU's Executive Commission is in full conformity with international law and also in conformity with our international obligations.
Hungary's Viktor Orban is having none of it. In Brussels, the Hungarian Prime Minister launched a blistering attack on Brussels, calling the plan illegal, reckless, and an act of war. Orban claims Hungary's resistance has already forced the EU to retreat.
The plan so far was to use Russian assets to finance Ukraine, which I think is an open declaration of war. So, if we think about it, what are we talking about? There are 2 countries at war with each other. One has its assets seized, over 200 billion euros. Then the one who seized it, a third party not involved in the war, since it's a Ukrainian-Russian war, will take this asset and give it to one of the warring sides. What is this? This is a declaration of war, an entry into the war. So this is terrible. It would be a mistake if we committed it. But based on today's news, it seems like in the afternoon background meetings, we've achieved a victory. And tomorrow we won't be talking about the frozen Russian assets, because we finally managed to make the previously mentioned points understood, and they will probably take it off the table.
Orban went further, accusing Brussels of bypassing unanimity rules and staging what he described as a legal coup against member states. He warned that once EU law is bent, it can be bent again, not just on war, but on energy, trade, and sovereignty itself.
Well, here a historic mistake occurred. That is, the circumstance that the 6-month decision on the frozen Russian assets, which always required unanimity, was abolished, bypassed, undermined, and they decided that instead of unanimity, a majority decision can be made, which I believe is a historic mistake. This will have very serious consequences. It's clearly a judicial murder, meaning we are dealing with an open violation of the law. Such a position cannot be defended in court. However, the Union has stepped onto this very dangerous path. And indeed, the question is open from now on. If they could violate the law once, circumvent the member states, they could do it again.
As EU leaders gather for high-stakes talks, the frozen assets debate has become about far more than Ukraine. It is now a test of how far Europe is willing to go, financially, legally, and politically, to confront Russia. Whether the plan advances or collapses, the damage is already visible. The EU is split between escalation and restraint, and that divide is only widening.